I've been here for 7 years. I've worked on bikes for close to 20 years. 20 plus years now. My dad's always working on stuff. We always had bikes in the yard. He had an old Ninja behind the shed that we always messed with trying to get running. So I started working on that thing and got it running once. And that's kind of how I started, working on those. But yeah, he always worked on stuff, so I was always working on stuff. When I was in an agricultural class in high school, and they had a guy from MMI come out and talk to us about going to MMI and UTI and stuff like that. And I offered a Harley program, and I was like, "Yep, that's what I'm going to do." Because until that point, I was going to school to be a biologist. So I decided this is what I wanted to do. So. It's a big change from biology to working on bikes. So we're working to get to all the bolts on the cam plate or cam cover. That exhaust is still hot. That's the big thing that we're going into. So once we get to that, that's where the fun starts. Well, D&D is a 2-in-1. So you're gonna get better back pressure, you're gonna get better performance out of it than a true dual exhaust, where you have different restrictions, different curves and everything else. Then when it comes together, it flows a lot better going out, sucking out more. Harley's pipes tend to have a CAD in them. D&D, they have a catalytic converter in them. So these are actually kind of stopped off where you can't come up through it without going through the CAD, just like a catalytic converter on your car. Harley has that in it for EPA emissions. D&D is going to be an open pipe all the way through, with baffling in the motor. We tune the motor to the cam and the exhaust. So when everything's said and done, the airflow that cam is allowing to get up and in, we're allowing it to get out with a better flowing exhaust, which is going to create more performance out of the pipe. You know, you're getting more in, you're getting more out. Take the O2 sensors and stuff off of that when we get ready to go back into it. Now we're getting to the real fun part. We have adjustable push rods, so there's no need to take the top end off. We go in and take the push rods out. Saves us a little bit of time. So what I was doing is just getting them at their lowest point so there's not any pressure on the springs. That way when I cut them, it doesn't slam that valve closed. This is what opens your valve from your cam and your lifter. So the top of this is in your valve, the bottom of this is in your lifter. Cam comes up, pushes up the push rod, opens the valve. That allows us to get air in, fuel in, exhaust out. push rod down. We shoot for 14.1 when you're cruising. That's optimal air fuel density, and that's what you try to get wherever you're at. Typically, you don't see very much change unless you go from below sea level to above sea level. That's a wide range of riding. If you're riding from below sea level to above sea level, you know, like talking like up in the mountains, like way up high in the mountains, then you might see a runnability issue if you're coming from below to way up high. That's a cam locking tool. That's to lock the cam to the crankshaft. Keep it from spinning when I break these bolts loose. Cam's up here, crank's down here. You have a gear and a chain out here to drive it. This is the cam. Right now, if there were push rods in here, these would be going up and down with the cam. If you're going to put a pipe in it, it's best to do it at the same time you decide to do the cam. The pipe has to come off to get to the cam, so you're paying double labor if you're going to do the pipe anyways. So that's our cam, and that's our oil pump. So that's your rotors. Oil circulates through there. It has to have just a little bit of space for everything to pump all the way through. It picks up and then squishes everything around. And there's two rotors on this. You have a back. You have a pickup rotor and then a feed rotor. They both move oil around different ways. Just like anything else, it gets warm, it gets thin. So, and there's our cam out. It looks like it's got a Screaming Eagle bearing already in it. These new bikes come with a Screaming Eagle bearing in them. Up until 23, they didn't come with it. Screaming Eagle bikes, they typically have Screaming Eagle bearing in them, but regular standard bikes had just a regular OE bearing. And the bearings just got a tighter roller. There are more rollers in it, they're smaller, so you have more in there, so it's a better bearing. But because this already has it in there, we're probably not going to change that out. Look in there, there's a bunch of little rollers in there. Bunch of little needles in there that cam rolls around on. That goes into the crank. That's the crank behind it. So if that bearing explodes, those bearings can get into the crank. The lifters that we run typically have a better bearing in them and a better roller. They have rollers on the bottom that the cam rolls on. And it has bearings in there, and it's just a better bearing, a better roller, better internals, better valves, and everything that hold oil. Most of this stuff in here is a one-time use as far as O-rings go. The bolts that hold everything together, it's all a one-time use. It tends to stretch. It doesn't stretch much, but it can stretch and it can break. We have seen the cam bolts break, and then that creates quite a bit of noise when that happens, because it just backs out onto the cover and sits there and spins. So, and then that can cause your cam to mess up and everything else.